I thought I knew my wife of 18 years until she left for a bachelorette party, and I found hotel receipts that destroyed everything. What I discovered about her affair with our biggest client nearly killed me, literally. But when I learned the dark family secret she'd been hiding, I realized this betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. My name is Lance Whitman. I'm 42 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a pretty solid life. Married to Brenna for 18 years, 2 great kids, Elijah, who's 16 and plays varsity basketball, and Lily, our 13-year-old who's got more attitude than sense, but makes me laugh every day. We own a small travel agency together, Adventures Unlimited, in downtown Phoenix. Been building it for 12 years now, through recessions and pandemics, and we were finally seeing some real success. I should have known something was off when Brenna got excited about her friend Crystal's bachelorette party. Don't get me wrong, my wife deserved a weekend away. Lord knows she'd been working her tail off, handling our corporate accounts while I focused on the adventure tourism side. But the way she lit up when she talked about this trip to Sedona, it was like watching someone come alive after being asleep for years. "It'll be good for me, Lance," Brenna had said, packing her new designer luggage. When did she buy that? On Friday morning. Crystal's been planning this for months, and you know how she gets about her big moments. I remember standing in our bedroom doorway, watching her fold clothes I'd never seen before. A red dress that still had tags on it. Lingerie that definitely wasn't for my benefit. But I pushed those thoughts away because I trusted my wife. We'd build a life together, a business together. We were partners. "Have fun, babe," I told her, kissing her goodbye. "The kids and I will probably just order pizza and watch movies all weekend." She left in high spirits that Friday afternoon, practically bouncing to her car with that new energy I couldn't quite figure out. Said they were staying at some resort in Sedona, that Crystal wanted the full spa treatment before her wedding next month. I waved from the driveway as she drove off, thinking about how pretty she looked when she was happy. That was my first mistake, not following my gut when it started whispering that something wasn't right. My second mistake was believing Preston Hayes when he said he'd seen Brenna's car at the grocery store Saturday afternoon. Preston's been my best friend since college, stood up at our wedding, coaches Elijah's basketball team. If anyone would have my back, it would be Preston. So when he mentioned seeing her Honda at Safeway, I figured maybe the girls had come back early for supplies. But then Crystal posted pictures from Sedona Saturday night. Group shots by the pool, wine-tasting photos, typical bachelorette party stuff. I scrolled through every single image twice, looking for my wife's face. She wasn't a single one. That's when the pieces started falling into place, and none of them painted a pretty picture. Sunday morning came early. Real early. I'd been sitting in my home office since about 4 a.m., unable to sleep, when I heard her car pull into the driveway. The engine shut off, and for a moment, everything was dead quiet except for the sound of my heart hammering against my ribs. I stayed put in my chair, lights off, waiting. The front door opened with that familiar squeak I'd been meaning to fix for months. Her heels clicked across the hardwood, those red ones she'd bought last month that I'd never seen her wear. The sound stopped abruptly when she noticed the light was on in the kitchen. "Lance," Brenna called out, her voice careful, cautious. "You're up early." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I listened to her moving around, probably trying to figure out why I was awake at dawn on a Sunday. The refrigerator opened and closed. Water ran in the sink. Normal sounds that felt anything but normal. "In here," I finally called back, my voice steadier than I felt. She appeared in the doorway of my office, still in that red dress, her makeup smudged and her hair different than when she'd left Friday. She looked like she'd been somewhere important, somewhere that mattered, just not with her husband. "How was Sedona?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "It was good," Brenna said, but she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "Really relaxing. Crystal had a great time." I nodded slowly, then reached into my desk drawer and pulled out my laptop. With a few clicks, I brought up Crystal's Instagram page from the weekend. Photos from the resort, the spa, dinner shots with all the girls laughing and toasting the bride-to-be. "Looks like fun," I said, turning the screen toward her. "Crystal seems really happy." Brenna glanced at the photos, and I watched her face change. Just slightly, but enough. "Yeah, she was," Brenna said. "It was exactly what she needed." "Funny thing," I continued, scrolling through the pictures. "I don't see you in any of these photos. Not a single one from the entire weekend." The silence that followed felt like a physical thing, pressing against the walls of my office. Brenna stood there in that red dress, looking like a woman I didn't recognize, and for the first time in 18 years of marriage, I couldn't read her expression. "I wasn't feeling photogenic," she said finally. "You know how I get around cameras when I'm tired." "Right," I said, closing the laptop. "Must have been exhausting, whatever you were actually doing." I got a reaction. Her shoulders straightened, and some of the careful composure slipped. "What's that supposed to mean, Lance?" I stood up slowly, walked to the window, and looked out our neighborhood. Same houses, same mailboxes, same world I'd been living in while my wife was apparently living in another one entirely. "It means," I said, turning back to face her, "that Preston saw your car at the grocery store Saturday afternoon." "Local grocery store. Here in Phoenix. Not Sedona." The blood drained from her face, so fast I thought she might faint. "Preston was mistaken," she said, but her voice had lost all its strength. "Was he?" I asked, because I got a pretty clear picture of what really happened this weekend. The question is whether you're going to keep lying to my face or if you're finally ready to tell me the truth. Brenna sank down into the chair across from my desk, and for the first time since she'd walked through that door at sunrise, she looked like the woman I'd married. Scared, guilty, and caught. "Lance, I can explain," she whispered. "I'm listening," I said, sitting back down. "But Brenna, this is your only shot at honesty. Don't waste it." Brenna's hands trembled as she sat across from me. The silence stretched until she finally broke. "His name is Devin," she whispered. "Devin Clark. He works at Pinnacle Marketing." My blood went cold. Pinnacle was one of our biggest corporate accounts. I'd sat in meetings with their team dozens of times this year. "You're sleeping with someone from our client company?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. "Lance, it's not like that," she started, but I held up my hand. "How long?" "6 months," she admitted. "Maybe 7. 7 months." While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to keep our travel agency profitable, she'd been having an affair with someone who could destroy our business reputation. "It started innocent," she continued. "We were planning their summer corporate retreat. He asked me to dinner to discuss details. Just business. But then we started talking, really talking, and I felt alive again." "Alive?" I laughed bitterly. "You felt dead being married to me. You were always working, always stressed about money or the kids' schedules. When was the last time we had a real conversation?" She had a point, but I wasn't about to let her turn this around on me. "So instead of talking to your husband about feeling neglected, you decided to find someone else?" I asked. "Real mature, Brenna. I know it was wrong," she said, tears starting. But by the time I realized what was happening, I was already in too deep. I pulled out my phone and showed her the credit card alert from Saturday morning. "The charge from the Marriott downtown. Room 412, I said, watching her face go pale. 2 nights, king bed. Want to tell me more about Crystal's bachelorette party?" She buried her face in her hands and started sobbing. Not pretty movie crying, but the ugly, broken kind that comes from knowing you've destroyed something precious. "I was going to end it after this weekend," she said through her tears. "I swear, Lance, I was going to tell him it was over." "But you didn't," I said flatly. "You spent 2 days with him, then came home and looked me in the eye like nothing happened." She looked up at me. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry. I am. That I hate myself. I do. That I love you and want to fix this. I do, Lance." I stared at this woman I'd shared a bed with for 18 years and realized I didn't know her at all. "No," I said quietly. "You love the security I provide, but you don't love me enough to be faithful." The Pinnacle Marketing connection hit me like a sledgehammer, not just because it was personal betrayal, but because it threatened everything we'd built professionally. "Does he know you're married?" I asked. "Does Devin know about Elijah and Lily?" Her silence was answer enough. "He sat across from me in conference rooms," I said, my voice getting dangerous. Shaking my hand, smiled while I pitched travel packages for his company. I walked to my computer and pulled up our client files. 3 major presentations in 6 months. 2 client dinners where Brenna had insisted on coming along. 1 golf tournament where she'd personally handled hospitality. The golf tournament last month, I said, pieces falling into place. "You insisted on delivering welcome packets personally. That's when you two had your little rendezvous." "It wasn't planned," she said weakly. "On our client's dime," I continued. "You used our business relationship as cover for your affair. Do you have any idea what this could do to our reputation?" "It won't get out," she said quickly. Devin's married too. He has just as much to lose. He's married. I stared at her. You're having an affair with a married man? His marriage has been over for years, she said defensively. They're staying together for their kids. Right. The oldest line in the book. I slammed my hand on the desk. What about what I've been going through? Working myself to death while you're playing house with some executive. I never meant for it to happen, she repeated. But it did happen, I said, walking around to stand in front of her. And now I have to decide what to do. Not just about our marriage, but about our business. About the kids. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. We can get through this. Counseling, working on our marriage. I'll cut all contact with Devin. You think it's that simple? I asked. You think you can flip a switch and everything goes back to normal? I think we owe it to our children to try, she said, playing her last card. But for the first time in 18 years, I was thinking about what I owed myself. The kids, I said slowly. Elijah's 16. He's not stupid. All those late nights, all those weekend emergencies. Do our children know their mother is having an affair? The pure panic that crossed her face told me everything I needed to know. Monday morning brought a reality I wasn't prepared for. I was making coffee when 16-year-old Elijah came downstairs with his basketball gear. Dad, he said, dropping his bag. We need to talk. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. What's up, son? I know about Mom, he said simply. About what she's been doing. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the tile. Elijah, I don't know what you think you know. I saw the text messages, he interrupted. Saturday night when you guys were arguing. Her phone kept buzzing. One popped up on the screen from someone named Devin. Said, missing you already with a heart emoji. I knelt to clean up the ceramic, buying time. Son, sometimes adults go through difficult periods. Don't treat me like I'm 12. Elijah said firmly. I started suspecting months ago. Mom's been different. Happier, but not about us. And she's been lying about where she goes. How long have you known? I asked, standing up. I followed her once, he admitted. To that hotel downtown. I saw her with some guy in the lobby. My heart broke. You followed her. Is that why you were fighting? Did you finally figure it out? I sat at the kitchen table, feeling every one of my 42 years. Yes, son. I figured it out. What about Lily? He asked. Does she know? She knows something's wrong, but not details. She asked me yesterday why Mom's been crying. Just then, Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed animal, something she hadn't done in years. Why is everyone yelling? She asked, scared. We're having a serious conversation, sweetheart, I said, opening my arms. She ran to me. Is Mom sick? She asked. She's been acting weird. Over her head, I met Elijah's eyes. He shook his head slightly. Mom and Dad are going through a rough patch, I said carefully. But we're going to figure it out. Are you getting divorced like Tommy's parents? The question hung in the air. I looked at my kids, these amazing children who didn't ask for this mess. I don't know, baby, I said softly. But whatever happens, we'll always love you. Tuesday afternoon at the travel agency, Preston walked in. My best friend since college, who'd stood up at my wedding, coached Elijah's team. The man who'd been mistaken about seeing Brenna's car. Hey, Lance, he said, but something was off in his voice. Got a minute? Always, I said, closing my laptop. What's up? Preston sat down, unable to meet my eyes. After 25 years of friendship, I could read his tells. There's something I need to tell you, he said. About Brenna. I already know about the affair, I said quietly. I figured, he said, running his hand through his hair. The thing is, Lance, I've known for a while. The words hit like a physical blow. You've known. About 3 months, he admitted. I saw her car at that hotel one afternoon. Figure it was business until I saw her come out with some guy. They were close. I stared at my best friend. 3 months. You've known for 3 months that my wife was cheating, and you said nothing. I didn't know how to tell you, Preston said desperately. I kept hoping it would end. So you let me live a lie, I said, my voice dangerous. You watched me work myself to death while my wife was screwing around. I was trying to protect you, he protested. You seemed happy. Happy. I stood up fast. I seemed happy because I trusted my wife and my best friend. Lance, please. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my office. Get out of my business. Get out of my life. Preston's face went pale. You don't mean that. 25 years of friendship. Friends don't let friends get played for fools, I said. You took the coward's way out. I made a mistake, he said, standing. I should have told you. You were scared of getting involved. I corrected. You decided my marriage wasn't your problem. That's not fair, Preston said, anger creeping in. Fair. I laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? You've known something for 3 months that could have saved me from this humiliation. I was trying to be a good friend, Preston said desperately. No, I said, opening the door. A good friend tells the truth. What you did was selfish and cowardly. Don't do this over one mistake, he pleaded. One mistake, I said. This was a pattern of choices. For 3 months, you chose to protect her secret instead of me. After he left, I sat alone, staring at the wall. In 3 days, I lost my wife, my marriage, and my best friend. Friday morning, I was at my desk going through the Pinnacle marketing contracts when the chest pain hit. Sharp, radiating down my left arm, making it hard to breathe. I gripped the edge of my desk, trying to ride it out, but the pain only intensified. Dad! Elijah's voice came from the doorway. He was supposed to be at school, but apparently had come by the office. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing. I managed, but even I could hear how strained my voice sounded. Just tired. You're white as a sheet, Elijah said, moving closer. And you're sweating. We're going to the hospital. I'm fine, I protested, but another wave of pain made me double over. No, you're not, Elijah said firmly. And I'm not losing my father because you're too stubborn to get help. The authority in my 16-year-old son's voice cut through my resistance. Within 20 minutes, we were in the emergency room, and I was hooked up to machines that beeped ominously. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a cardiologist who looked younger than Elijah, reviewed my EKG results with a serious expression. Mr. Whitman, she said, you've had what we call a stress-induced cardiac episode. Not a full heart attack, but your body's warning you that it's under too much strain. I'm only 42, I said weakly. Stress doesn't care about age, Dr. Mitchell replied. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, your cortisol levels are through the roof, and frankly, you're lucky this wasn't worse. She sat down beside my bed. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need honest answers. Have you been under unusual stress lately? I looked at Elijah, who was sitting in the corner chair looking scared and older than his years. How do you explain to a doctor that your wife's infidelity and your best friend's betrayal have been eating you alive? Some family issues, I said carefully. Dad, Elijah said quietly, tell her the truth. Dr. Mitchell looked between us. Whatever's going on at home, Mr. Whitman, it's literally affecting your heart. Your body can't sustain this level of stress much longer. My wife's been having an affair, I said finally. I found out this week. We're probably getting divorced. And your business? Dr. Mitchell asked. Are you the primary breadwinner? We own a travel agency together, I admitted. If we divorce, I'll probably have to buy her out or sell everything. Dr. Mitchell nodded grimly. Mr. Whitman, I'm going to be blunt. If you don't find healthy ways to manage this stress, you're looking at a real heart attack within the next few months. Maybe sooner. The room went quiet except for the beeping machines. Elijah was staring at his hands, and I could see tears in his eyes. What do I do? I asked. First, medication to bring your blood pressure down, Dr. Mitchell said. Second, you need to reduce the stress factors in your life immediately. That might mean making some hard decisions about your marriage and your business. You mean I should just let her have everything? I asked, feeling a familiar surge of anger that made the monitors beep faster. I mean you need to prioritize your health, she said firmly. Your children need their father alive more than they need you to fight a war that's killing you. After Dr. Mitchell left, Elijah moved to sit beside my bed. Dad, he said quietly, I can't lose you too. You're not going to lose me, I said, but even as the words came out, I wondered if that was a promise I could keep. Then stop trying to be the hero, Elijah said, his voice breaking. Mom made her choice. She chose a guy over our family. Don't let her choice destroy you too. Looking at my son, seeing the fear and pain in his eyes, I realized he was right. I'd been so focused on fighting for what was mine that I'd forgotten what really mattered, being alive and present for my children. Okay, I said, squeezing his hand. We'll figure out a different way. 2 days later, I was back home with heart medication and doctor's orders to reduce stress when my lawyer called with news that changed everything. Lance, David Bergen said over the phone. "I've been reviewing the evidence you provided about Brenna's affair. The financial records, the hotel receipts, the corporate connection. We need to discuss your options." I was sitting in my home office, the same room where I'd confronted Brenna a week ago. It felt like a lifetime. "What kind of options?" I asked. "Arizona is a community property state, which normally means everything gets split 50-50 in a divorce," David explained. "But there are exceptions when one spouse has been using marital assets to support an extramarital relationship." "You mean the money she spent on hotels and restaurants with Devin?" "Exactly. But there's something else, Lance. Something bigger." David's voice got serious. "The affair with a client representative could be considered a breach of fiduciary duty to your business partnership. If we can prove she used business relationships for personal gain, we might be able to argue for dissolution of the partnership with cause." I leaned back in my chair, processing what he was saying. "What does that mean practically?" "It means instead of her getting half of everything, she might walk away with significantly less. Maybe just her personal assets and a small settlement. And the business could remain entirely yours, especially since you can demonstrate that her actions put client relationships at risk." I thought about Dr. Mitchell's warning, about Elijah's plea to stop being the hero. But I also thought about 18 years of building a life together, only to have it destroyed by my wife's selfishness. "There's one more thing," David continued. "Given Elijah's age and maturity, and the fact that he's witnessed his mother's deceptive behavior, a family court might be very receptive to his preference about custody arrangements." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if we document the impact of Brenna's choices on the children, Elijah's emotional distress, the deception, the instability she's created, we might be able to argue that primary custody should remain with you." My heart was pounding, but not from stress this time, from possibility. What would I need to do? Document everything. The affair, the lies, the impact on the children. Get statements from people who've witnessed her behavior. Build a case that shows she prioritized her relationship with Devin over her responsibilities as a mother. And if she fights it, then we go to court with everything we have, David said grimly. "But Lance, this is a nuclear option. Once we file these papers, there's no going back to amicable divorce proceedings." I looked around my office at the family photos on my desk, at the business awards on the wall. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, hanging in the balance because my wife couldn't keep her marriage vows. "Do it," I said firmly. "File the papers." "Lance, are you sure? This will get very ugly, very fast." "David," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. "My wife had an affair with a client, used our business as cover, lied to our children, and nearly gave me a heart attack with the stress. If she wanted to play nice, she shouldn't have blown up our lives." "All right," David said. "I'll have the papers drawn up on Monday." "But Lance, once this starts, you need to be prepared for her to fight back hard." "Let her fight," I said, thinking about Elijah's mature words and Lily's confused tears. "I'm fighting for my children now, not my marriage." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office and felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: control. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't just reacting to Brenna's choices. I was making my own. Wednesday evening, I was reviewing legal documents when my mother called. Patricia Whitman had never been a fan of Brenna, and her tone told me she'd heard about the divorce papers. "Lance," she said without preamble, "Elijah told me what's happening. About the affair, about you being in the hospital." "Mom, I don't need a lecture right now," I said, rubbing my temples. "Actually, you need the truth," she said firmly. "About Brenna's family history." Something in her voice made me sit up straight. "What are you talking about?" "Your father-in-law, Robert," she said. "He had affairs throughout his marriage to Diane. Multiple affairs, over decades. I never told you because it wasn't my place, but now..." My blood went cold. Brenna's father cheated on her mother. Repeatedly, Mom confirmed. The whole family knew, but they kept it quiet. Diane stayed with him for the kids, for appearances. It was an open secret in their social circle. I thought about Brenna's seemingly perfect childhood, her close relationship with her parents, the way she'd always praised their marriage as a model. "She never told me," I said quietly. "Of course not," Mom said, because acknowledging it would mean admitting that her perfect family was built on lies and betrayal. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because patterns repeat," Lance, she said sadly. Brenna grew up watching her mother pretend everything was fine while her father did whatever he wanted. She learned that love means tolerating betrayal, that marriage is about keeping up appearances. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Brenna's casual attitude toward the affair, her expectation that I'd just work through it, her surprise when I refused to play along with the charade. She expected me to be like her mother, I said, understanding dawning. She expected you to look the other way, Mom confirmed. Because that's what she learned love looks like. I hung up and immediately called David Bergen. David, I need you to add something to the court filings, I said. Pattern of family dysfunction. Generational infidelity. I want a psychological evaluation ordered. That's aggressive, Lance. What's your reasoning? Brenna comes from a family where infidelity was normalized. I explained. Her father had multiple affairs, and her mother stayed silent. If we can show that Brenna's behavior is part of a learned pattern, we can argue that she's likely to repeat it, and therefore shouldn't have primary custody, David finished. It's possible, but we need documentation. I'll get it, I said grimly. My mother has been holding on to 30 years of family secrets. It's time they came to light. Thursday morning, the papers were served. Brenna called me screaming. How dare you? She shrieked into the phone. You're trying to take my children away. No, I said calmly. I'm protecting them from a mother who thinks lying and cheating are normal parts of marriage. That's not true, isn't it? I asked. Tell me, Brenna, did you ever mention your father's affairs to me? Did you ever think to share that little family tradition? The silence on the other end was deafening. My mother told me everything, I continued. About Robert, about your mother's willingness to enable his behavior, about how you grew up thinking betrayal was just another part of love. That has nothing to do with this, Brenna said weakly. It has everything to do with this, I replied. You didn't just cheat on me, Brenna. You recreated your parents' dysfunctional marriage and expected me to play along. Lance, please, she said, crying now. We can work this out. No, I said firmly. We can't, because I'm not your mother, and I won't teach our children that this is what love looks like. I hung up and immediately called Elijah. Son, I said, things are about to get very ugly. Your mother's going to fight these custody papers hard. Let her fight, Elijah said firmly. Dad, whatever happens, Lily and I are staying with you. 6 months later, I stood in my new downtown office, looking out at Phoenix sprawling under the desert sun. Adventures Unlimited had relocated after I bought out Brenna's share of the business. The Pinnacle marketing contract was gone. Devin had been fired when their company learned about the affair, but we'd found new clients who valued integrity over personal connections. Elijah knocked on my door. Dad, you ready for this? Today was the final custody hearing. After months of legal battles, psychological evaluations, and testimony from family members, we were finally going to know where Lily would spend most of her time. As ready as I'll ever be, I said, straightening my tie. The courtroom was tense. Brenna sat with her lawyer, looking smaller than I remembered. She'd moved in with Devin after their relationship became public, but their romance had soured quickly once the excitement of secrecy was gone. Judge Sarah Reynolds reviewed the case files with careful attention. This court has reviewed extensive documentation regarding the impact of Mrs. Whitman's extramarital relationship on the family unit, she began. We've also considered psychological evaluations, witness testimony, and the preferences of the minor children. I held my breath. Given the evidence of systematic deception, the emotional trauma inflicted on the children, and the documented health impact on Mr. Whitman, this court awards primary physical custody of Lily Whitman to her father. Relief flooded through me. Beside me, David squeezed my shoulder. However, Judge Reynolds continued, Mrs. Whitman will have supervised visitation rights every other weekend, with the possibility of modification pending successful completion of family therapy. Brenna was crying, but she didn't look surprised. The evidence had been overwhelming. Outside the courthouse, Lily ran to me and hugged me tight. We get to stay together, Dad, she said, her voice muffled against my chest. All of us, Elijah added, putting his arm around his sister. That evening, we sat in our new house, smaller than the old one, but ours, eating pizza and watching a movie. It wasn't the life I planned, but it was honest, real, built on truth instead of comfortable lies. My phone buzzed with a text from my cardiologist. Latest tests look great. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. What I was doing was simple. Choosing peace over victory, truth over comfort, my children's well-being over my wounded pride. A year later, I met Jennifer at a business conference. She was a travel blogger from Denver, funny and genuine, with laugh lines around her eyes that spoke of a life lived fully. When I told her about my divorce, about the affair and the custody battle, she listened without judgment. Sounds like you chose yourself and your kids over a toxic situation, she said simply. It wasn't easy, I admitted. The right choice usually isn't, she replied. We've been taking things slow, building something real on a foundation of honesty. Elijah likes her because she doesn't try to replace his mother, just adds joy to our lives. Lily likes her because she laughs at dad jokes and makes excellent chocolate chip cookies. As for Brenna, she sends birthday cards and shows up for school events. Devin left her 6 months after the divorce was final, apparently finding a married woman less exciting than a cheating one. She's in therapy now, finally dealing with the generational patterns that nearly destroyed our family. Sometimes I think about what might have been if I'd chosen differently. If I'd been like Brenna's mother, tolerating betrayal for the sake of keeping the family together. But then I look at my children, confident, honest, unafraid to demand respect, and I know I made the right choice. My name is Lance Whitman. I'm 43 years old, and I learned that sometimes protecting your family means being willing to break it apart. The life I'm building now isn't perfect, but it's mine, built on truth, strengthened by adversity, and filled with people who choose to be here. That's enough. That's everything.